Warning, this video contains flickering images which may trigger seizures in people with photosensitive epilepsy.
Arebyte Open Screen 2022 review. Open Screen is Arebyte's annual global open call for disabled artists working in digital, in partnership with Shape Arts. For this second iteration, 75 artists submitted works on the theme of sci-fi. Natalee Decker, Milad Forouzandeh and Sarkis were selected for this year's digital exhibition. Review by Kin, that's me. In this video review, we share screen captures from each of the three works. Whilst I do describe each of them briefly, full audio descriptions are available for each work on the Open Screen website. In Julio Cortázar's 1952 short story Axolotl, a person observes these seemingly time-defying creatures in a water tank before realising that they've transformed into one themselves. Quickly moving from fascination to despair, they perceive to have kept their human mind whilst being transported into an amphibian form. The protagonist glances at his neighbouring axolotl and sees in its eyes the shared sense of confinement and separation. The horror lies in the social gap and the endless silence produced when avenues of communication are removed. Milad Forouzandeh's prologue version 01 ponders issues of communication in that it reflects on how imagery is used to thread together generations. In this work, an axolotl appears continually spiralling around a statuesque figure. There's also a rotating plant with human heads positioned like berries, a brightly coloured bust crowned with fern-like fauna, and a gold rose, perhaps indicative of a society that thinks material wealth is beautiful. A soundtrack plays with the repeated lyric, a different version, echoing over a hypnotic beat and washes of synth-induced spiritualism. This, along with the title, makes it feel like a testing ground for experimentation. This is one version, but that does not mean it's the only one, and who might have the power to choose which version is best? In Prologue version 01's world of gene editing, in which plants, animals and humans are fused to take on new qualities, Forouzandeh asks how such symbols and icons might influence future poetry and literature. How might this affect artistic forms and how generations communicate via culture? What new mythologies might arise, and what might these say about our values? What deities are worshipped in a society that wields the force of genetic manipulation? Maybe we communicate with our ancestors through the symbols passed down. When iconography strikes a chord, we can feel a closeness and connection that's born from cultural familiarity, a sense of groundedness. The accompanying text mentions the cedar tree, an icon revered in Iranian culture as an enduring symbol of freshness with its evergreen foliage. The cedar tree is one of the oldest living organisms in Iran. Perhaps the connection with the axolotl is in how they both seem to resist the passage of time. The axolotl is known for its ability to regenerate amputated limbs, making it a symbol of renewal, as well as its apparently ageist facial features. Both tree and amphibian could be said to connect us in the present with ancient history, their quiet presence observing events that happen in front of them. When Cortázar wrote in 1952, the axolotls were like witnesses of something, and at times like horrible judges. I wonder what we might see through the eyes of the digital axolotls in Forouzandeh's work. From another perspective, whereas in Cortázar's story the axolotls barely move lest they disturb the others around them and provoke a conflict, this digital version twirls in a relentless motion. Perhaps it doesn't care who it disturbs, with no concerns around how its actions might affect others. Here I'm thinking about the developments in gene editing technology, eugenicist agendas and the social consequences that far too few consider. Sarkis's Panacea also appears to address technology and control, but this time through the setting of a dystopian cityscape in which audiences are invited to use an eye-tracking program via their webcam. The city is coloured with a dusty orange hue with a series of billboards that adorn dilapidated skyscrapers. As I'm taken on a journey through the post-apocalyptic scene, I'm left thinking what kind of body I inhabit as it meanders weightlessly, twisting and turning through this vertical city. When a billboard catches your attention, it opens up a video. One shows me a scene of apartments decimated by warfare and military tanks cruising down city streets. Another shows a comedy routine of a performer riffing on an exchange between separated lovers. Sometimes when artists use interactive technologies like eye tracking, it's to give audiences a sense of control, the feeling that they can directly influence the work. But in this case, I feel swept along with little insight as to how my eye movement really changes the experience of the work. The billboards demand attention. There's no option to look elsewhere. It's only through looking at them that you can escape this dystopia to be channeled through a tunnelling vortex which roots out to a serene landscape of snowy mountains. Then there's Natalee Decker's Crypt Fantasy, a series of imaginative designs for mobility aids that mark a move away from the types of wheelchairs and scooters offered by medical establishments. These new vehicles have a fluidity. Their frames are like liquid with splashes that look like ink blots. There's an unapologetic neon vivacity to these designs, but amidst the bends and curves are elements that have a more armour-like aesthetic, or an exoskeleton. On the rare occasions when virtual environments have the option to add mobility aids to avatars, like in Second Life, they don't look like this. And why not? It's easy to see how ableism perpetuates such designs in gamer culture. When searching the Second Life marketplace, I can't help noticing models like Psycho Zombie Girl in Wheelchair and other such tired tropes which speak to the fear of disabled people. These 3 digital works respond to Arebyte's Open Screen 2022 theme of sci-fi. However, I think they're also linked by their explorations of the body and how we might travel in environments opened up by digital tools. Decker's Crypt Fantasy provokes thoughts around the visibility and representation of disabled people and mobility aids in online spaces. Sarkis' Panacea experiments with interactive eye tracking technology to blur physical and virtual space while taking us to a post-apocalyptic landscape infused with references to the Levant, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Palestine and Israel. And Forouzandeh looks at the genetic fusion of animal and human bodies with plants, and how this could result in new symbols and new mythologies that travel through time. It's a well-produced collection of digital works that leaves a surprisingly hopeful impression. I'm left with the feeling that although digital spaces are, of course, still fraught with social hierarchies and power struggles, we can take a moment to imagine virtual environments that don't act as extensions to war, systems of oppression, and humanist superiority.